Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Charles Calhoun, aka the Shade Tree Pro, coming to you again with a Monday lesson. I hope everybody's doing well on this beautiful and wonderful Labor Day holiday. Last week on Monday, I talked to you all about the 5 phases and how I use those in block psychology, like a form of block psychology, to break the different areas of the body down to where, like a mechanic, when I look to go fix a golf swing, you know, I put all the different variables together, you know, to find out the fixes and faults. One thing I've learned growing up, before you can learn how to do something, you first got to learn how to fix it. I think it's even a medical field, you know, is first learn how to heal. So that's why, you know, I developed the 5 phases. But this week, I'm going to talk about what I refer to as, you know, the 6 joints on each side of the body. Now, with that, what I did, I defined movements to each side of the body. Now, it may not go for you, but this is just what I did for me as I developed the swing system and philosophy top down. So let me show you the 6 major joints. Now, regardless of what we do, what muscle we may use, in a sense, the muscle is only going to be conducive to whatever the joint allows us to do. And some of the most important things that I looked at is breaking down, you know, on each side of the body. So the first thing that I did was understanding the shoulder socket. Well, the shoulder socket in itself is the most superior joint in the body, simply based on movements, because it can do a 360-degree circle completely, in a sense, without really any restrictions in itself. So that joint, you know, has a lot of mobility on both sides of the body. So the next is the joint that I defined is the elbow joint. Now, the elbow joint basically is a hinge joint, and that joint can go up and down, just like a hinge. But what's unique about the elbow joint, probably one of the things that may cause a lot of confusion when the golf swing and swinging, unless you really understand it, is that not only is it a hinge joint, because of the radius bone that rolls over top of the ulna bone, in a sense, I give it to where there's a half move, you know, because it won't go completely around in a circle, so it's a half move. So the elbow joint is defined as 2.5 moves. Now, the wrist joint is in itself, the wrist joint, because it has the ability to go, it's got 4 moves, it has the ability to go up, down, left, right. And so when I define all these movements and just continuously, as I go down the body, and this is why another reason for the top down is that I look at the superior actions in compared to the inferior actions. Now, if you look at the hip sockets, for an example, and this is the mobile joints in the lower body, it simply is this. I say that the hip sockets can do 360 degrees and 180 degrees. And what I mean by that is that if I lift my foot, I can do 360 degrees in a circle. And then for me, the most that I feel that the other part of, with my foot on the ground, I actually, especially when I make a shift, I actually can go 180 degrees, you know, somewhere within that swinging, you know, when you shift and how you move, you know, your foot's gonna move, but it's not gonna do a 360 degree circle. So that's why I defined it as 360 and 180. Now also, as being a hinge joint, the knees, I define that as 2 movements because it goes up, down, up, down. Now, I know people understand that you can have some movement sideways or whatever, you know, but you got to be very, very careful with your knees in that. But the initial movement, no different when we're walking, is that the knees work like a hinge joint, basically up and down. Now, also with that is you have the ankles. which the ankles is much like the wrist joint. I can take the foot and I go up, down, left, right. So those are different variables in the sense that when you're making your golf swing, that many of these movements come into play. And remember, the muscles are only going to move in conducive to the joints. So, you know, when you're building, or when I'm building movements in a sense, that I'm not trying to make the elbow, for an example, do what the shoulder socket do. The shoulder socket is superior in essence. But here's the catch-22 to this, and this is why I say a lot of movements in the body, excuse me for a second, a lot of movements in the body are actually really simple, because no different than like the dead finger, a lot of our movements in itself, you know, especially in the golf swing, is going to really be defined by the weakest links. Because no different than I say, you know, good knee action, elbows, pretty much good action in the elbows in a sense, you know, of how that, and the body is naturally going to define it. And the beauty of the wrist with all its movements, the shoulder socket with all of its movements, the beauty of it is it's much easier for those sockets to adapt to the bending of the elbow, like I said, and the hinge joints, no different than the bending of the knee, that the hip sockets and the ankles can adjust to the simple bending of the knees. So, you know, we got to be very, very careful when we study movements of the body. And just because something may have a whole lot of movements in it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to make those things do all that it can. Sometimes just following the simplest path usually gets there. Now I also got to where I broke it down a little bit of how I look at it when I look at the whole body from the side view there. You know, 360 degrees of the shoulders, 2.5 movements of the elbow joint, 4 of the wrist, 360 to 180 of the hip socket, 2 of the of the knee joint, and 4 of the ankle. And then as I said, you know, as I build that foundation of setting up, top of the head, bottom of the feet, and that's kind of how I define a whole lot of the way that I create these movements. So when like I said, when I start defining these movements, and I define them for my system, as I said, I was doing these things to just find out, okay, how can I move? Because a lot of times I think in the golf swing, or even in sports in general, you know, when we don't know how something moves and the reasons that we overdo them, and it's just because we don't take the time a lot of times and just break it down to see the simplicity of, you know, what these movements are and what their limitations are. A lot of time people get injured, whether it's knees, shoulders, whatever, is that a lot of times we put more stress on the body to make it try to do things, in essence, that it maybe can't do, like in the knees, for an example. So that's what I use, and I know this is going to be a quick and simple, easy lesson, Monday lesson today, but that's what I did the way I broke it down, to be able, like I said, to define the joints on the human body as I defined them. Once again, like I said, the 6 major joints on each side, shoulder sockets in itself. Remember, the shoulder socket or the shoulder girdle is a separate entity from the body cavity. And as you can see, that's why I have it broken down in that manner. As I said again, the elbow joint has 2.5 movements because the radius bone turns over. That's what allows you to release and do certain things in essence. The movement of the wrist in itself, 4 movements, up, down, left, right. You know, they have scientific terms for it, but I just make it simple, up, down, left, right. The hip sockets in itself, or whatever, has 360 and 180. Lift it up, 360 on the ground, 180. Knee joints in itself, 2 movements, bending up, bending down. For a good setup, all those come into play. And the ankle joints in itself, 4 movements, you know, again, up, down, left, right, you know. And like I said, it's like a puzzle, and you put these movements together, and then all of a sudden, you just start finding yourself being able to, you know, kind of sequence your own swing because it's really truly based on the movements. So, but anyway, people, like I said, break your body down, feel that, maybe do your exercises to get some mobility in your joints. The more mobility you have in the joints, the more fluid that your swing can or should be, in essence. But so just definitely give that a try. Now next week, Monday, what I'm going to do for you, from where I showed you the 5 phases, and now I've showed you the 6 major joints on each side and how I defined, gave them a movement or number system on each side, all the way down to the body. Next week, I'm going to break down to you the information that I created for the very first book that I ever wrote was Golf Setup for Success. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down how I created and developed what I call as the 3 bodies. And the 3 bodies is the essence of my setup of how you set up to a golf ball or set up in any kind of sports. And then we'll go into detail how the shoulder girdle is separate entity from the body cavity, only connected to the body cavity by the collarbone. And that 3-body setup is the essence of where I really start taking the top-down swing system and philosophy to the next level. People, this will give you a judge, as I do these lessons on Monday, this is just to let you see and let you understand that I'm just not copying something and pasting it up and trying to call it something different. I'm actually showing, I put a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of research into how can I develop the most efficient and simplest swing motion that I can. And as I said before, everything is predicated from the fact is you hold the golf club in your hand, those fundamentals, your feet touch the ground, and before you can hit any kind of golf ball or anything, you got to get the club up to be able to bring it back down. People, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Like I said, look for the lesson next Monday on the 3 bodies. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and I mean a big thumbs up. Also, people, if you haven't subscribe to my channel. I want to keep on growing. I'm going to do it regardless, so you might as well sit down, get you some good lessons. There's some people out there, you might be in the PGA and you're trying to take your learning process to another level. I think it was Warren Buffett who said, the more you learn, the more you earn. And so what I'm doing is just trying with my top-down philosophy in comparison to ground up. All I'm doing is trying to give you a little bit more to add to your learning process to make you the best possible teacher that you possibly can, to help the golfers out there, because we need, as teachers, we need to get rid of that old thought of keeping that handicap in America so high. We need to start bringing that down in a sense, and personally, I think we can do it. As I said before, it's not you as a golfer that may be so bad. It just might be the information. And the better information we have, the better we grow. So remember, give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you tell all your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Pay attention to next week when I do the 3 bodies. And as I always say, Charles Calhoun, aka the Shade Tree Pro, always good golfing.